Thank you, Allison. It is 8:01 Pacific Standard Time where I am. Good morning. My name is Bobby Mann. I'm the Maddie's Human Animal Support Services Pilot Director. So honored to be co-hosting this call with Mary Smith and the rest of the Maddie's Fun team. It is a beautiful day where I'm at. It's a little sunny, a little cold, but luckily I'm not a weather guy. I'm a guy who helps promote animal welfare and the human animal bond. But my favorite part of the week is actually kicking it over to my dear friend Mary Smith to kick us off with some motivation.
Oh, Bobby, thank you so much. You're always been so kind. So first of all, I want to just remind you all that tomorrow is a candid conversation at Maddie's Fund with an incredible woman named Akeisha Townsend Eaton. And Akeisha is the managing attorney of the Pro Bono program at Animal Legal Defense Fund. Now, you might be asking, what does that have to do with what we do? But what Akeisha is working on is sort of a broader issue of animal protection and welfare that I think will give us some important clues for how we can do the work that we do in our own backyards. And Akeisha used to work at Best Friends Animal Society. So she's very, very familiar with the challenges and opportunities that we face on a daily basis. So that's tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And also tomorrow is a very special Haas presentation on philanthropy, everything that you ever wanted to know. Brian Dougherty is going to be is on a panel, and he and along with some other development rock stars are going to be giving us lots of great ideas for what a robust program needs to look like, even if you're very little or medium-sized or big as an organization. Sometimes with the challenges that we face and the crisis that we're dealing with that sometimes feel like on an hour by hour basis, it's easy to forget that there are things that we need to do in order to sustain our organizations. And they will be unveiling Bobby, I hope I'm not stepping on any toes, but they'll be unveiling a philanthropy toolkit to help all of us do a better job of the work that we do. So last night, I saw a special on 60 Minutes. I don't know if any of you watched that show or if you did. It was a pretty incredible, heart-wrenching story of the firefighters who lost their lives, who tried to save thousands and thousands of people as the World Trade centers were collapsing. It was a hard hour. It was gut-wrenching. But it really made me think, and I continued to think this morning as I got up, and I wondered what makes people run into a building that's collapsing when everybody else is running out? What makes people want to lean in when everybody else is backing up? What makes people want to embrace some of the most difficult situations when it might be life-threatening or life-ending for them, and yet they do it? And it's easy for us to say, well, that's the job they have. But let's face it, it's more than that. And then I think of all of you and what you face every day and how COVID has created so many challenges that we never imagined almost 2 years ago. And yet every morning you get up and you face them and you deal with them. And on top of all of this, everyone is saying to us, we need to do things a different way. And that can make you want to tear your hair out, or it can make you want to take a deep breath and exhale, because it's true. We need to do things a different way. And what calls like this, what Haas, what all of you together are showing each other is that there's a better way to do the work that we do, that we can't just be focused on the animals, but we also have to be focused on the people and animals. And that may seem like a double, triple burden on the work that we do, but sometimes doing the right thing is really the hard thing to do. And the fact that we don't have to do it alone, we get to do it with each other, really makes all things possible. So if you're feeling particularly alone, if you're feeling like the challenge is too great, reach out to any of us. Reach out to me. My email address is smith@maddiesfund.org, and I will be happy to listen. Just listen if you're feeling like that's really what you need, because we really have great opportunities ahead of us, all of us. And when I draw the line from 2001 to today, some parts of it make me very happy and some parts of it make me very sad. And 20 years ago, I was a fully formed adult. And so the things that have happened over the past 20 years rests on my shoulders and probably the shoulders of others like me. And sometimes it feels good. And sometimes it feels like we have a hell of a lot more to do. So let's do it together. Bobby, that's all for me. Let's get on with the presentation.
Mary Smith, was just delicious and delightful. I'm feeling so good right now. It's Monday morning, and that was better than my cup of coffee for sure. And like you said, Mary, like if we don't keep doing the work, we're gonna be extinct, just like those dinosaurs on your ceiling right there, right? So appreciate you, appreciate the kind words, appreciate the motivation. Now let's give it a minute and open it up for national updates.
I'll go, Bobby. I'm here for Bethany this morning. John Dunn from Best Friends. Mary, I have a question for you, though. When will I be a fully formed adult? Is that coming soon at all, ever? I don't know. Maybe crunch the data. Oh, speaking of data, here to talk about our annual data set, but more importantly, the white paper that we do with that data set. So for those of you that maybe are not aware, as part of our No Kill 2025 initiative, which is our goal to get the entire country to no kill by the year 2025, we realized we needed to know more, right? Data is hard to come by in this field. And without it, it's hard to know what to do, where, when. And, for those of you who've been doing it a while, you will know that like every year it would be like, well, it's 5 million. And we all just kind of went, yeah, good, great progress. But we didn't actually know if that was true or not. So when we started that 2025 initiative, we said, okay, we need to know the data. So now annually, there's a huge process we go through to collect all of this data, staff, volunteers, and then each June is when we put that out. It's very high level, really for the public more than anything. And then in around this time is when we put out the white paper. So this takes that annual data set, looks at it all in a much more granular way. And this is for you all, right? Animal welfare professionals, what's going on in your community, what's happening across the nation. So many of you work across state lines in different communities, what's happening there. So it's important. We'll put links. I think somebody already got Allison or somebody's already on it. Awesome. We've got links there. And feel free to DM questions to me, or you can send me an email. I'll put my email in there as well. And then also, since I'm filling in, I got to do it. Last week on the podcast, Best Friends Podcast, episode 79, all about the staffing crisis. We've had some pretty good episodes, I think, over the last few weeks. So definitely check it out, bestfriends.org/podcast.
And John, Mary and I actually just did the stats, ran the algorithms, and I think the exact date when you will be a fully formed adult is 2000 never. But that's because you're the best kid in animal welfare. And I will also give a plug for the shout out for the podcast. Amazing listen. If you have not done it, please make sure that you listen.
Bobby, let me just tell you something. Friends wouldn't do that. I got my hopes up. Like you actually were going to give me a year, and then you just dashed my dreams of being an adult. Anyway, thanks everyone. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Kathy from Canada, and now also from Humane Canada because I got a new job. Hi, Mary. John, I'd just like to say a couple of things to you. One, why would you want to be an adult? And two, we need the whole world to be no kill by 2025. So we got to get on board with some stats from Canada too. At any rate, I'm here to mention that we have our upcoming mini event on Wednesday of this week, the 15th. The impacts of climate change on animal welfare. Thanks very much, Allison. I had it all ready to go. At any rate, please take an opportunity to register. It's going to be a great event. And of course, because you all mostly have US dollars, it'll cost you less. Talk soon.
Okay, I have to say one thing. When they talk about, whatever you aspire to be, you got to put it in the air and you just got to put it out there and feel it. This used to be just Kathy Duncan. And then she became Kathy from Brampton. And then she became Kathy from Canada. And now she's about to Spain. Run Humane Canada. So come on, we all need to have those vibes.
Well, hey, it worked, right? And I have Casey Spain to thank for it. And oh, by the way, just a little plug, you can now pre-order your Kathy from Canada shirt. And so we can all have one.
Thanks, Kathy. Anyone else? All right, well, let's get it kicked off with our first presentation. And I know Mary was talking about change and how really in order for us to be successful at our work, we really want to make sure that we're honoring the human animal bond. And it's always so refreshing to find organizations where that is their primary focus. So I'm going to toss it over to Becca Britton, the Executive Director of Neighborhood Pets, to tell us a little bit about the amazing work that they're doing at their organization.
Thank you so much. And Mary, I just wanted to comment on what you said. Our team here, and you'll learn about what Neighborhood Pets does, but our team here, we work with people who have pets. And when my team gets lonely and burned out, because it is a lonely job, because not a lot of people are doing this work, I literally talk to them about leaning in and remember that we are taking it to the next level when there's and really addressing the problem at hand, and where it's so easy to just say people suck, or wow, we need to get their dog out of that home, and instead going to the problem and not only addressing it, but addressing it in a way that the human responds positively and adjusts, how their animal is cared for, or how they react to behavior issues, things like that. So that's one of the things that I say to my team. So thank you for saying that, Mary. I really love that. And I also want to encourage anyone, if you ever feel lonely, if you're doing this work, I'd love to be a resource as well. So Neighborhood Pets. Neighborhood Pets actually opened in the Slavic Village neighborhood of Cleveland about it'll be 5 years in October, our 5th anniversary. So our whole mission is recognizing the human-animal bond and supporting people with financial needs by helping them keep their pets in their homes. And we do this by providing accessible and affordable resources and care and other supportive services, human supportive services, in order to keep their pets in their home. And while we're doing that, we're building community. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that and about the work that we do. So I always think it's really helpful to have a little bit of history about Neighborhood Pets and how it became. I was running a Friends of group for animal control. I ran that for about 13 years. And then I was also hired by a local animal shelter just prior to opening up Neighborhood Pets. It was the 3 years prior to opening up Neighborhood Pets. And I ran a Pets for Life modeled program. And it was funded by the ASPCA. And they basically gave me a targeted area in Cleveland that was determined the very worst in regards to intake. And they sent this little white girl out there to start knocking on doors. So I didn't have a team, I didn't have volunteers, and I was really just kind of thrown in. So my work experience, though, was working in the nonprofit sector, in the social service world in the city of Cleveland. So I had done that for several years. So I was very familiar with Cleveland, with how the neighborhoods are set up, how it works. But I have to say, having the experience of going into people's homes is completely opened up my eyes to a whole other world that I wasn't aware of. So as a Friends of group that supported animal control, I was doing this at the same time. We also hosted wellness clinics throughout the city. We did that for about 10 years. And And I would say when you're hosting wellness clinics, you do get an insight into what the community needs. Taking it another step further, going to people's homes and really seeing the obstacles that they face gave me a really good perspective on not only what are the basic needs, what do people need, but also what do people respond to, and really opened my eyes to understanding that people that we serve do not trust animal shelters, and they do not trust animal control. Being that I worked for an animal shelter at the time, running the Pets for Life program, immediately people did not want to trust me because they thought I was going to take their animal from them. They also didn't want me to tell them how they should be caring for their pet. So right away, you're going to get walls up, up and down. So that's kind of the background. When I realized that the shelter's priorities were different, it was one of those situations where I couldn't unsee what I saw, and it really needed to just take the plunge and open up Neighborhood Pets. So Neighborhood Pets is a brick and mortar storefront. It's in the central location within the city of Cleveland. It's a highly residential area, and it's also the highest intake number that Cleveland Animal Control gets for intake. So we are, all of our services are for the city of Cleveland and East Cleveland. We have walk-in hours 3 days a week. We also have weekly scheduled wellness clinics with a veterinarian, as well as spay and neuter clinics. And the spay and neuter clinics, we don't do surgeries here. It's free transportation. It's a free surgery, and we provide transportation to and from the clinic. So the whole idea is that we are the liaison. So we are the trusted source that can provide them resources to other things that we can't provide directly. So we've become an established anchor in the Slavic Village community. And while we do service animals, it's more of a social service that was an unexpected, it was very unexpected, and it's not what we were thinking it would be. So, our philosophy is lack of access to affordable pet care is a social justice issue. And we believe all pet owners, regardless of their income, should have access to resources in order to keep and care for their pets. So we've just been working away and just doing what we think needs to be done. And while doing this, we've grown. It started with just me, and then now I have a full staff and a ton of volunteers. And it's really it's kind of a movement here, and it's really amazing. So the approach is, I love the philosophy of Pets for Life, and it's their manual is actually what I provide to new volunteers and new staff for training, because how they address their philosophy is similar to ours. How you approach people, they did all the work. They have all the training videos. I would encourage anyone, if you'd like to learn more about how to communicate with people, how to address certain needs, really to go through the Pets for Life toolkit. I was lucky enough to shadow the team and then go through the certification program with Pets for Life, and I really very much believe in it. At the same time, it's not a sustainable program because everything is free. And it's also not accessible all the time, and that was one of the things when you're building trust with the community who is not used to anything like this. They need something that is there all the time, and they need people who, this is what we do, and we follow through with it every time. We're a trusted resource, and they can get to us, and we're not associated with the man. We're not associated with animal control, a shelter, or anything like that. So I think that was a really big piece. So what we do, walk-in services, we have low cost or free pet supplies. All pet supplies are donated by pet supply boutiques or large chains, so we don't have to pay for anything. And we have everything from collars, leashes, harnesses, enrichment toys, things like that. We have a pet food bank. We have and that's for dogs and cats. $5 flea prevention, low-cost dewormer, $5 puppy shots on a walk-in basis, free engraved ID tags, and $5 microchips. We do provide medical assistance vouchers for emergency medical as well as euthanasia services. And that is, again, not something that we had budgeted for, and it was something we realized very quickly had to be included in our budget. It's very important when serving the community. And then we do counseling, information, and resource referrals. So our rule is never say to someone, I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't do that here. We don't use those words. If we can't help you directly, we'll find you a trusted resource that will, and that will return their call, and that will work with them. So that's very important for us. By appointment services, we host weekly wellness clinics with a veterinarian, free exam, and it's preventative wellness care, ear, eye, skin, vaccines, microchipping, nail trims. And we also have a free spay and neuter, as I mentioned before, for dogs and cats. Additional program that we do provide that we don't promote to the public is that we do provide temporary care for owners that are experiencing homelessness or need to get medical attention for some reason. And we do that on a case-by-case basis. So they don't have to surrender their pet in order to get emergency medical or until they secure housing. And I'm sorry, I'm talking fast. I know I'm on a time crunch and I want to make sure I'm getting everything in.
And Becca, I don't want you to feel rushed because this is such important information. I would say we have at least about 8 to 10 minutes total with questions. So,
okay. So who we service. And I kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of the volume. So this is the first half of 2021, just January through June. Keeping in mind, this is also during COVID. Our numbers have changed during COVID. Food bank numbers are up. Wellness clinic services are up. Spay and neuter is down due to our spay and neuter partners and limited capacity. And we also incorporated deliveries of pet food into our services. So they're a little bit different, but new members that we have signed up is 432 in the first 6 months of 2021. We currently are serving 4,500 unique households throughout the city. Our spay and neuter for the first 6 months, 387 pets. We always have a wait list, not only for cats, but when we first opened animal control, the chief at the time said, "Oh man, Becca, good luck with that spay and neuter program. We can't get anybody to spay and neuter their pets." So I'm very proud that we have a wait list for our dog spay and neuter, and it's really being a trusted resource. That's the key to people, and getting the right type of information. Being threatened with how many pit bulls are in a shelter, your dog's going to die, you're not doing the right thing. Those don't work. So we really kind of have a unique understanding as to what people respond to. So our walk-in puppy vaccinations, 434 unique pets. And I'll just let you guys read through the numbers here. And I'm happy to send out this PowerPoint after the fact too, so you can reference it or get any information.
Hey, Becca, I have a quick question for you related to this. So as far as the community that you serve, what is the total population? And is this 4,500 clients, are they spread through the entire city, or do you see them heavier in specific pockets of the city that you serve?
Yeah, so we actually, I can get you all that information. We have customized Salesforce, which is a client management tool. Everything we do, we collect data on every individual, where they live, what ward they live in within the city, what services they receive, government services, and what services they receive from us, paid and comp. So I can pull that information. I'm happy to share it with you. I do not have it offhand, but I'm looking up the Cleveland population. 381,000 is the Cleveland population. Cleveland's a pretty big city. Over 60% of the city is living in or near poverty level. So, and 30%, over 33% are living in deep poverty. So we are in a central neighborhood in the city called Slavic Village. We do have a lot of clients that live in this neighborhood. I would say that the percentage of those outweighs the other neighborhoods throughout the city. The longer we are in business here, the farther our reach extends. So we have clients on the far east and the far west as well. We don't advertise, it's all word of mouth. So, and we collect that data too. We want to know how did you hear about us? 90% is from their friends and neighbors. So, yeah, and I'd be happy. We have a City of Cleveland ward map. I can even share a map that shows, you know, where everything is. And our biggest, you know, challenge with COVID is being able to reach people in other neighborhoods throughout the city that are in need. Prior to COVID, we were hosting info tables at community events across the city. So where there would be the where there would be the Cleveland Food Bank, all other social service organizations kind of have like info, you know, workshops and events and festivals, health fairs, things like that. We always table at those as well, which is a big part of how we reach other neighborhoods throughout the city. So we are currently expanding our wellness services. So we are expanding into a storefront adjacent, which will be doubling our size. Frankly, what we planned on originally was a vehicle, a mobile unit first before the expansion. But because of the needs of COVID, the wellness needs, and the lack of capacity at vets in the area, we kind of had to flip-flop. So our next goal will be a mobile unit so we can start working in other neighborhoods directly.
Great. And Becca, speaking of the community service, it looks like Dr. Berliner has a question about the vet LVT. Are they an employee? Are they contracted, or do you share that staff member with other clinics?
Yeah, so we have 4 to 5 veterinarians that we work with. I'm saying 4 to 5 depending on their scheduling. All of them are volunteer except for one. She's contracted, and she might as well volunteer her time. She's charging us like $20 an hour. So the veterinarians are volunteer. They love doing this work. It's such a contrast from doing private practice. Our clients are so kind and grateful. Most of them have never had a veterinarian talk to them directly before, or have actually been in a vet clinic. So this is like an amazing experience where they feel so empowered and like, you know, really like, you know, so thrilled to be having that, like, I see you and I'm helping you, you know. The vet techs, our licensed vet techs, we work with we have volunteer techs, but we also work with a pet insurance company called Embrace Pet Insurance. They have claim adjusters that have to be a licensed vet tech in order to work for them in that department. In order to keep their skills up, they provide their claim adjusters to us for free, and they pay them. So it's a fantastic partnership. And their techs love coming here. So it's a way for them to do their vet tech skills and actually get paid a living wage by working not as a vet tech. So and they're fantastic. They all used to work in private practice. They're highly skilled. So I wanted to share community and partnerships is our key to making sustainable impact in the community. So being a standalone organization, you know, approaching the needs of people is kind of how we started, but it is not how we sustain and not how we're making a big impact. We quickly started working with other social service organizations, homeless, low income, healthcare, and youth groups, senior groups, and really we are a resource for them, and they are a resource for us. So we share a lot of referrals back and forth. and being a part of the community is a huge part. So we have parties for our clients. I love this picture here of this guy. He is this is a Polish and ethnic neighborhood where it has had a serious white flight back in the 70s. So there's a lot of racial divide here in this neighborhood in particular. And I love this photo. This is an old school Polish guy playing unicorn ring toss with a little kid from the neighborhood. And that's just at one of our parties. So what we find is while they come from different parts of life, you know, everyone has one thing in common. They love their pets. And what an amazing bridge that is. So we have holiday parties for our clients where we give out human need products as well as pet supply products. We have hot meal, everybody comes. Hundreds of our clients come out for that event. This is our one of our members, Darrell. He was our Santa this year. And Pet Fix Northeast Ohio is a spay and neuter partner of ours. We host voter registration events here. It's a way to reach clients. It's a way for our clients to reach other needs and to see the needs in the community. So we registered a ton of voters during the election season, which I was so very proud of. And they love having the services at a trusted source in the community. That's huge. These are two councilmen. We have volunteers from animal control who volunteered to build dog runs for one of our clients, Johnny. These dog runs were actually repurposed from animal control when they didn't need them when they got a new building. And the volunteers came out to Johnny's house on the east side of Cleveland and installed all of them for him. So it's really fantastic. When we have our pet food bank, all of our food is donated. By pet stores a lot of the time, but sometimes we need to put it out to our donors. So this is a photo of all of the cat food that we got donated from our Amazon wish list when we needed some cat food. So, okay. Our team is 4 full-time, 3 part-time, and some contracted employees. This is our holiday. This is our holiday party last year. It was a drive-through, so people drove through and got their human needs and their pet needs. Look at this amazing team with animal control officers mixed in with regular volunteers, veterinarians. It was great. So I want to give you guys kind of an idea. One of the biggest things that people ask me is, well, we can't afford that. And you can. So we're independent nonprofit. We don't have funding from government. We don't have funding that an animal shelter would have. We are completely independent. Our budget was very small when we first started. We worked with the Community Development Corporation and got free rent for a year with this little storefront. Since then, we've grown. Our budget originally was $100,000, and now it's up to $420,000. So most of our funding comes from individual contributions. There are grants. A lot of the grants, PetSmart Charities is a huge supporter. And then we do have program revenue. So our services are not free. Some of them are, but we essentially sell at cost or a little bit above that. So there is program revenue. One of the goals is, while we're expanding our wellness services, is to expand that to the general public so we can have an additional stream of revenue as well. And this is our storefront announcing that we're expanding. Our tagline on everything, including our apparel, is take care of each other. And I was so excited to get that slapped on our awning too. So as soon as you drive down East 65th Street, we have a lot of sex workers, drug dealers. This area is a high pocket of crime and kind of darkness. And I love that our awning says take care of each other, super bright. So we're working on fixing up the storefront, and it's going to be another light on East 65th Street. So we have a client survey we put out at the end of the year, and we got 262 client surveys completed. They were happy to complete. It was a lot. Amazing response. I have data. I have so much data to share with everyone if you're ever interested in all kinds of things. But these are 3 words that describe your experience when you're at Neighborhood Pets. And that's what they shared. So I'd love to answer any questions for anyone.
Okay, this is so amazing, and you're absolutely right. We would love to see more of this data in the future, but I'm going to go over to Peter Wolf. I believe he had a question a little higher in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Yeah, this is amazing, Becca. I'm curious on the cat numbers. I was surprised to see more cats being sterilized than dogs. And I think I'm wondering if one of the things you're tapping into with a program like this is that these cats that we would often consider community cats are considered pets by the people in the community. Like we maybe have two different definitions going on simultaneously.
Absolutely right. So when we schedule cats, we do big. So we schedule 70 to 90 cats on one spay and neuter day, and they come out, and what we do is they all come in one day, and then they go into a transport vehicle. And then they're transported to the spay and neuter clinic. Then they're brought back, and that's where their clients pick them up. But you're right. A lot of these cats are indoor, outdoor. They're not feral. People feed them and take care of them, and they belong to someone. And we have the need for cat spay and neuter is crazy high. But we have a big population. A lot of people, while they have a ton of cats inside, they also feed a ton of cats outside. So I also think that the numbers of pets are higher. We find this across the board. The number of pets in a lot of our homes are higher than a standard household. And it's not because people are hoarders. It's not because people have horrible judgment. It's because there's just a lot more strays. So, and people have hearts, and they don't trust shelter. They don't trust animal control. So they end up keeping them. And that's a pretty strong theme.
Becca,
Thanks.
the one word I'm going to add to the end of that is yet. They may not trust them yet, but thanks to organizations like you, I know you're helping bridge that connection. So we do have time for one more question, and I see a ton in the chat. So if your question has not been answered, if you will please unmute and ask your question to Becca. I'm going to mute now and wait for someone to unmute.
Hi, this is Joyce with Community Pets Program at Animal Care Centers of New York City.
Hi.
Hi, our program is very similar, and I'm learning so much from you. I had a quick question. You said you do about 70 to 90 spay neuters of cats in one day, and they're transported. Where is that done? Is that done at a brick and mortar clinic in one day for that many cats? And how often is that done?
Yeah, it is. And it's once a month.
Okay, so
Brick and mortar.
is that are those donated services by a vet clinic?
No, those are all of these surgeries are free to the client. We are billed as a typical low-cost spay and neuter client, and the funding from that comes from a local funder called the Kenneth Scott Foundation, and they fund animal welfare needs, particularly spay and neuter in the Midwest region.
Thank you so much. Bobby, I had one more quick question if no one else does, but if someone else does, I will mute.
Yeah, keep on rocking. We have about 30 seconds.
Oh, thanks. Okay, this is a quickie. I noticed you said that when people need temporary pet care, when they're in crisis, going in the hospital, one of the things you use are pet care companies. Can you briefly say if that's a donated service by the pet care company or how that works?
Do you mean veterinary services?
No, I think you said you do, like, if someone has to go in the hospital, their animal needs to be cared for. Like, and I thought, so how is that done? I noticed you listed pet care. Is that like cat sitting or?
Yeah. So it depends on the pet. So we had just 2 weeks ago, we had he's homeless. man in Cleveland who was attacked, and he needed emergency medical care. So his cat came and lived with us for a couple of weeks here at the resource center. We only do that with one-on-one cases with cats. With dogs, we partner with other organizations. So one of them, which is really cool, Cuyahoga County Animal Shelter. During COVID, all of their cages were empty. She reached out to me. We work with them regularly. She reached out to me and said, hey, we've got all these empty cages. If you guys ever have a need to house animals temporarily, let us know. So that's fantastic. That's one of our partners. Another partner is, and that's free. Another partner is pet care, pet sitting business. We have had it both where we pay for their services, and we've also had it where they donate their services. We also have foster homes as well for that. So it's kind of been a mixed bag, and really it's relying upon our partners in the area to make it successful. And I think one of the things I wanted to say was, Bobby, on your point of people don't trust animal shelters yet. And I don't want to give the impression that I'm negative about animal shelters at all. I completely understand what's going on. And I also, my experience working for them and also working with animal control is that animal welfare workers have been conditioned to think a certain way and to respond a certain way for all of these years to the general public, right? And so it's just really retraining the way you respond to things, and also kind of peeling back the layers of why are these pets, what's going on? Why are they ending up at the shelters?
Well,
Things like
absolutely, Becca. And I think the most critical part of that, the yet, is that you are the bridge, because you are really slowing down and developing those relationships. And that is when it's going to be critical to success.
Let me share the screen. Okay, can everybody see it?
Looks good, Stephanie.
Excellent, thank you, Brian. Okay, so everybody, thank you for, I wanted to thank a lot of people. Give me a quick second here. We, as from the Haas Philanthropy Group, we are big on, of course, raising money, but we're also big on stewardship. So thank you to all the contributors of the Haas Philanthropy Working Group for all your time and expertise, who have been working for over a year to be able to come to this week. Bobby, would you mind sharing our working group members in the chat?
Of course. Allison will drop it in there.
Thank you. And also to Maddie's Fund, thank you for hosting this call and providing this space. And thank you to all the Haas supporters who have made this possible. You can check out that incredible list, which you can find at the bottom of their webpage. And if Allison doesn't mind to drop that in the chat as well. And thank you, Allison, from Maddie's Fund, who's behind the scenes making us look really good by dropping everything in the chat and looking organized. And also a big thank you to Bobby for all of his leadership, organization, guidance, and motivation for our working group. So this is a team effort. So going into philanthropy, the couple people you're going to hear from today, we have Laura from Humane Rescue Alliance and Tammy from Barks of Baltimore, and also Brian from San Diego Humane are all on the call today. So what is philanthropy? So philanthropy drives our mission forward, and it brings big ideas from concept to reality through education engagement. What you're looking at here in the pie chart is the breakdown of where philanthropy came from in 2020. 69% came from individuals, 4% came from corporations, 19% came from foundations. And if you ask how much was actually given to charities in 2020, it was $471.44 billion. So as part of the Haas Philanthropy Working Group, we had a lot of discussion of how to organize our talking points and all of the buzzwords that everybody hears about: philanthropy, development, fundraising. So we wanted to be able to show this and break it down into how do we as Haas Philanthropy define these three terms and how do they work together? And when they're working together appropriately, what does this solve? It brings in support for animal care. It supports staffing needs. It can support new facilities. We're able to start and sustain programs and even establish reserves or endowments to ensure long-term viability of our organization. So coming up, what are some takeaways? What do you hope to expect from this presentation? You're going to learn about a toolkit that the working group has put together. You're going to hear a little bit more about job alikes and how you can either begin or continue building this within your shelter. And as you've heard a couple times, please join us tomorrow for the 'Tis the Season to Fundraise webinar and that is a typo on my part, it has been moved to 5 p.m. Central Time. So it's 5 p.m. And if you don't mind, put that link in the chat, Allison. Thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to Laura and Brian.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephanie. So Stephanie noted a number of things, but one of the big things that this group is working on is a philanthropy toolkit. And in thinking about how we were going to look at the opportunity to share with so many people a little bit more about philanthropy, what we didn't want to do was dive into telling everyone, hey, this is what you should do with direct mail. Hey, this is what you should do with social media, because that's what the toolkit is for. One of the things that many of us struggle with is trying to recreate wheels that are already created. And really, Becca's presentation prior to this to me was such a perfect illustration. And I put this in the chat about not saying we can't do things. It's just a matter of how we can position them, how we can grow on them year over year. And also taking a look at that, really recognizing that individual philanthropy was this central component that's driving that project and so much of what we do. So our toolkit is designed to help people look how to systematically build your own philanthropy programs, because we firmly believe for the Philanthropy Working Group that it is philanthropy that holds the key to allow us to actually unlock new programs, to expand the programs that we have and expand the impact that we have. So the toolkit is really one of our first steps in helping sheltering as a whole and how to be able to do that. So we're going to drop into the chat where you can actually find that toolkit. And if your philanthropy team or philanthropy people are not on this call, we would encourage you and actually implore you to share that document and link with them. Then, if the next thing we would do is say, once they've had a chance to look at the toolkit, no matter what, and even if you're like, well, I don't even have a philanthropy team, then we want you to go look at the toolkit, because understanding how to build our philanthropic efforts, again, is really going to be central to how we change animal welfare as a whole. And Stephanie, if you can jump to the next slide. And we're going to go to the next slide. And when we go to the next slide, what it's going to talk about is basically what we're looking to do to build our community. So the Haas group has been amazing at building this incredible community of animal welfare professionals who are coming together every week, multiple times a week for many of you. What we want to do is push some of that energy over into the philanthropy space. So we've had our working group working over the past year, but what we haven't had is really, really broad representation from shelters around the country. So these job alike groups that are starting October 4th, noon Central Time. So if you're in the Central Time zone, bring your lunch and join us. We would love to have you be a part of our community. Those sessions will basically help to do some of the things that we're going to be diving into in much more sort of granular detail. If people want to talk about social media, if you want to talk about direct mail programs, if you want to just talk about anything related to philanthropy, we're going to use those sessions to do that and to really be able to provide resources and build a true community that will help expand philanthropy across the country for animal welfare. For all of us in the Philanthropy Working Group, I think there's no doubt that we feel this is an essential thing for us to be able to partner effectively with our program teams so that we can make all of our dreams and realities come true for animal welfare. So hopefully we'll have folks join us. Like I said, if you've got philanthropy team members who are not on this call, please share the link to the toolkit and this job alike information with them, as well as the other sessions we have for the rest of the week. And now I believe the program is going to move over to Tammy to take it from here. So I will kick it over to Tammy.
Thank you, Brian. Before we dig in a little bit, let's start with a poll. Polls are fun. So if we could cue the poll here, and if everyone here on our call could take a second and just plug in really quickly. If you know what % of your revenue comes from philanthropy versus other revenue sources. No right or wrong answer. Go ahead and just take a second here. So you're think about what your donations, your events, money that you raise. This is not government operating contracts. This is not adoptions fees, fees for services, things like this. Again, no right or wrong answer. It's really going to vary a lot from shelter to shelter between municipalities. And the reason that we want to do this is just that percentage is going to be what's driving your stories and your fundraising and culture of philanthropy. So are we, are the results? There we go. So this, we can keep going. If you haven't answered, go ahead and take a second. But the next slide, if we can go to the next slide, please. There we go. So we took a few pie charts from a couple of different shelters. Again, you're going to see that they're all quite different. I work for Barks in Baltimore City, so our pie chart is there on the right. You'll see that we are about 70-30. 70% from philanthropy, 30% from our Baltimore City operating agreement plus fees for services. There's a couple other shelters on here that you can see. Their city contracts and adoptions programs, things like that. Again, it doesn't really matter what your percentage is because we're all going to have different percentages, but we're going to look at that as our drivers, and that's going to shape the culture of philanthropy. So for Barks, again, we're about 70-30. And I think when we talk about raising money, it can be a little overwhelming to say this year, this shelter needs to raise X millions of dollars. But instead, if we look at it based on the percentage, I think it helps our staff and our volunteers and also our donors understand it a bit more. So for instance, at Barks, if we're raising 70% of our total annual budget, what we can say is what would things look like if we did not have that 70%? If we only had 30% to run off of, how would things be different if we had to cut 70% of our staff, 70% of our programs, 70% of our medical care for animals, 70% of our programs for the community? I think that probably is easier to wrap our heads around and again, speaks to our constituents a little more. So that is going to be your goal. It's going to show how you grow over the years. It's going to show how you become more self-sufficient over the years. And it's going to help set your goals for the future in growing. So if we can go to the next slide. So growing philanthropic support for your shelter. Of course, we all know it's essential for carrying out our mission. Again, it doesn't matter if you're raising 30% of your budget or 70%. That is your mission, your staffing, and your animals are depending on that income. But it also says why, you know, your staff and volunteers need to be invested in your culture. And that is, of course, for getting the messaging out. If you think about it, there's a very good chance that the general public, they're more likely to interact with someone in your shelter or a volunteer than they are with your philanthropy department. So these people are really, really key to your organization and to this culture of philanthropy, whether they're interacting with them at the shelter, outside of work, on their personal social media channels. These are, in fact, your storytellers. Everyone is a storyteller for your organization. And it's really important to stay in touch with them, connect with them, and give them ways to share their stories with you and connect with you. You know, whether that be you happen to be at the shelter and run into a volunteer outside walking a dog who tells you a story about how, oh, I was just walking this dog when their family arrived to redeem them, and they were here in tears the second they saw their dog, you know. That right there in the philanthropy department for us is gold. That is a great story to share. And so staying connected with these storytellers is very important. These storytellers, they're not necessarily the ones going out and making the asks, but they are helping us gather these stories. If we can go to the next slide now. I think most people will agree that the term fundraising is intimidating, scary. People don't like it. I think we talk a lot about language and why it's important, and certainly here, when using the term philanthropy and not fundraising, I think speaks to the need for gathering these stories and why maybe it's not as intimidating as we think. To help take some of that fear out of fundraising. So in the philanthropy department, are we all sitting around every day on the phone, cold calling, begging for money? Maybe sometimes, but not, most likely, no, that's not what we're doing. Instead, we are inspiring, educating, engaging, and we're looking to those storytellers to be the direct line to the animals and the families that we serve, because they are carrying out our mission. We're also building relationships and looking to these storytellers as important partners in accomplishing our mission. If we can go to the next slide. So each shelter should have its own culture of philanthropy, but then when we look at all of ourselves together in animal welfare as a whole, we know that total annual giving to animal welfare is traditionally 1%. If you look at the numbers, you have about 28% to religion, 15% of annual giving to education, 14% to human services, so on and so forth. Then at the very, very bottom, we have the environment and animals. So what we want to do collectively is take that 1% and push it to 2%. And what can that do? That can help us preserve families, keep pets in homes, keep families together. If you are a shelter that has over the years really expanded your programs and increased that live release rate, you may have a donor that says to you, your live release rate's really high right now. You're saving a lot of animals, you're raising a lot of money. Why do you need more money? That is a common question that you may get. At Barks, we have started boarding for families in crisis, and those average stays for those pets are usually about 30 to 50 days. So if you look at the average stay for an adoptable animal per se, that's sometimes just only a couple of days, it's obviously going to cost a lot more for the shelter to board that family's pet. So again, another reason, when you're asked why your shelter needs to raise more money, these are some of the goals that we can strive for in the next steps in our philanthropic plans.
So just to wrap up, this is Stephanie from Casey Pet Project again. Culture of philanthropy. Everyone is an ambassador to build relationships. Everybody can be a storyteller. Everyone can promote philanthropy to fulfill your mission. So everybody can take a role and does not have to be the one who asks for money. What's next? Explore the toolkit, join a job alike, talk to your coworkers or your leadership team about philanthropy, and attend the webinar tomorrow. Thank you.
Wow, strong closing, Steph. Straight to the finish line. I love it. Well, thank you so much to all of our presenters today. I'm going to toss it over to Mary Smith to close us out.
Brian and Tammy and Stephanie, thank you all so much. Back in the day, Rich Evansino used to say that the ABC of philanthropy and fundraising was do a good job, tell people about it, and ask for help. And I love the way you guys have sort of taken that and really just exponentially blown it up. So it'll be exciting tomorrow to hear more about the work that you're doing. And Becca, you are definitely putting Cleveland on the map. I used to think Cleveland was all about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now I know it's that and so much more. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful week.
Bye, everyone.